next up, we have B.E. Smith from Weed Country. B.E. is from Trinity County, part of the Emerald Triangle, one of the greatest places on earth for cannabis. And that, that's one thing I just don't understand. They grow all this cannabis in a greenhouse for Sativex, GEW Pharmaceuticals over in Britain. What the hell are you growing cannabis in Britain for? Come to California. California is where we grow cannabis, the best in the world. The most medicinal, the best tasting, the most exquisite cannabis on earth is grown in California. We should be as proud of that as we are of growing some really top-notch wine grapes. So B's from Trinity County, and he's a Vietnam veteran, and he's been using cannabis for PTSD, and we really need to make a stand for that because there are a lot of veterans who are suffering, who have come back from the Iraq and Afghanistan and have had head injuries and all sorts of ailments that come from their service, and we need to stand with them and make sure that they have access to cannabis. And he's going to talk to us about our liberties, about what we can do to ensure that we have the right to grow and use cannabis, and how we're going to dial back all these restrictions that short-sighted, ignorant politicians are putting upon us. Come on, B, and tell us about it.
Thank you very much. Hey, your people are my type of people. I started this business in here about late 80s, or late 70s, I'm sorry. And I started with the truckers, and that didn't go too far because they were too busy to learn about their liberties. Can you hear me? No? So put it right next to my mouth? Wow, okay. I'm sorry. Got too loud. If I do anything wrong, yell at me. Okay, you got to yell because I'm hard to hear. And my wife will vouch for that. She's home loading bullets today. She couldn't come. No, I'm just teasing. I started in the growing business way back in the late 70s. I got back from Vietnam. I started drinking. I was John Wayne, Apple Pie, AAA, and a couple friends, one of them now my brother-in-law, we was driving in front of Shasta Dam, never smoked a joint in my life, never took a hit. I had a beer between my legs, and one of them lit a joint up and passed it to me, and I said, what do I do with it? And they said, smoke it like a cigarette. And so I took my first hit on the downhill side of Shasta Dam in a four-wheel drive pickup. And when I took that first hit, I reached between my legs, got that bottle of beer, and poured it out of the window. And I've never had a drink since. But I knew that I found my drug that was going to help me, and so I had to make a decision to produce that drug because I knew it was illegal. And so it took me a couple years to get out of the system, and what got me out of the system was the abortion issue. That got me out of the system. When I came home from Vietnam, I was considered a baby killer. In fact, my friend that let me smoke the first joint with him, he was the only friend that I had in the Reading area that knew I was a Vietnam veteran, because I hid it, because I didn't want to be called a baby killer, because I knew I was going to kill someone for doing that. And so I knew I had to escape, and it took me a couple years to do it, and I finally was able to move up to Trinity County in a box canyon in the backcountry, and I started started growing. And I grew guerrilla growing for years and years and years until 1996, and we voted for the Compassionate Use Act, and I started growing the next year. And that was the year the feds came in and got me. And I went to court. They wouldn't allow defense for me. I couldn't say the word medical marijuana at the trial. In fact, my friend Woody Harrelson, when he was on the witness stand, he mentioned medical marijuana, and the judge says, Mr. Harrelson, if you say that word one more time, I'm going to put you in jail. That's how that's how bad the federal government is. We had no defense. I was found guilty. They gave me 27 months, and I did my 27 months standing on my head. And I got out, and I started growing pot again. They're not going to tell me what I'm going to do. I won't allow that. So, during the 3 years I was on probation, I grew 3 years. Passed every drug test. It's easy to pass a drug test. And then I finally discovered where my liberties are. And this is what I want to talk to you today about, your liberties. Our liberties have been hidden from us because we're not educated on our liberties. And it's your responsibility, each individual, to be educated on your liberties. I can't claim your liberties for you. I can only claim my liberties. You have to claim your liberties because you're independent. We're born free and independent. Now, we're also born with unalienable rights. Now, what's the difference between unalienable rights and civil rights? There's a big difference, a real big difference. Unalienable rights comes from your Creator. Whoever creates you, and it's your choice, it's not my choice who creates you, it's your choice, they give you unalienable rights. Now, if you're in order to learn about your liberties, you're going to have America's freedom documents. And you can get these down at your local congressman's office or your assembly speaker or whatever, but they'll give you this book, and it has all of the documents that you need to know how to get your liberties. Now, we didn't write the Constitution. We're just the caretakers of it. So if we're going to be the caretakers of the Constitution, we have to know what it means. Okay, and this is what I did when I went into the backcountry of Denny and to grow my medicine. I took a copy of the Constitution and all Americans' documents, and I finally figured it out. Okay, and I put it to test. It works. I can ride down a highway on a dirt bike with no helmet, and they can't do nothing to me because I'm a free man. And I know the procedures to keep my freedom. And unfortunately, you have to know this in this country, but we do have an enemy, and that's the government. I'm sorry to say it, but that's our enemy, is the government, because they're trying to stop my unalienable rights. I don't care about civil rights. I want my unalienable rights. And cannabis is an unalienable right. It's also a civil right. Okay? It's also a civil right. Now, let's go to the Declaration of Independence, and the second paragraph. It says, "We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal and have certain unalienable rights. Among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. To secure these rights, government are instituted among men." Now, government was created for one purpose. Why? To secure your unalienable rights. Okay? Because when we won the war on independence, we turned it around 180. The king became the servant, and the servants became the king. And so we're all kings and queens in here. Now, if you go to the state constitution, it also backs up that we're born free and independent. So each person is born free and each person is born independent. Now the government seems to think that they have a right to control us. Where do they get that right? We never gave it to them, but because it's a long story and I don't have that much time to tell you. I only need about 20 minutes. But if you learn your liberties and put those people in their spot, we're going to live in the best country in the world again. I mean, there are some old timers here, and I'm 67 years old.
Yeah!
And I've seen some of the liberties that you young people will never see again unless we take this country back. Okay? And it was a great country in the 40s and the 50s. It wasn't, that was a heyday of America. But we're losing it. We're losing it fast. But your rights they're simple to learn once you get into it, and you can control the government out here. Now this ordinance we have in Trinity County, Shasta County, let me be the first one to tell you, it does not apply to you. It does not apply to private property. Okay? We hired the county government to run the affairs of the county government. We didn't hire them to run the affairs of B.E. Smith. I'm private. I live on private property. You can't tell me what I can do and what I can't do on my property. That's not a brag. It's a fact. It's written in here. We are the kings of our castle. Private property. How can you own private property to the exclusions of others? How can you own private property if someone can tell you what to do and what not to do? And this is what this ordinance is doing. But it's not applying to private property. They're writing it under the authority of the affairs of the county government. It's like gun control. The government has a right to regulate and govern the people under their jurisdiction. They have a right to regulate and control guns for those people that is under that jurisdiction. However, they don't have a right to control my guns because why? I'm not under their jurisdiction, number one, and number two, I'm private. I'm protected by the Second Amendment. Anyone can understand the Second Amendment shall not be infringed means what? You can't mess with it, dude. But government does have a right to control and regulate the people under their jurisdiction. So yes, they do have a right to regulate guns, but only for those people under their jurisdiction. But they think that they have a right to regulate us because we are a person, or we are the people. But that's not true. We're private. They're public. They're fiction. Government is fiction. It's created by a piece of paper. It is fiction. The only way that you can deal with the government is get fiction also. Governments are corporations. All governments are corporations. So if you want to work for the government, you have to sign a contract to go to work for the government. Then you're under law of equity. Right now we're under the common law. See, there's two different types of law in this country. Common law and law of equity. And so sure, if you want to work for the government, you can work for the government, but you have to take an oath of office, right? Article 6 of the Federal Constitution and Article 20, Section 3 of the State Constitution, you have to take an oath of office. When you take an oath of office, that's a contract. So now you're under that contract till that contract is over. And so you have to obey the statutes. But if B.E. Smith didn't sign a contract, he don't have to obey the statutes because I'm free and independent. I'm the one that has to give my liberties up. You're the one that has to give your liberties up. And you do it by signing a contract. That's where they guide us. Of course they have a right to regulate the people that signs the contracts and work for the government. These gun control laws are gun control laws for law enforcement. They're the one that carries the guns out there. It's not for us. We're the kings. You can't pass a law against the king. It doesn't make sense. It's not logic. And we got to turn this around or we're going to lose our liberties. And we don't want to lose our unalienable rights. Like I said, I don't care about civil rights. Civil rights are for 14th Amendment citizens. I'm not a 14th Amendment citizen. I'm a son of my Creator. I live in the common law. Until I hurt someone, the government has no right to come and prosecute me. And if they do come and prosecute me, then I have procedures, the first 10 amendments of the Bill of Rights, to protect me. The 4th, 5th, 6th, and 8th Amendment are your criminal procedures. Number 7 is your civil procedure. Okay, they codified it back in the 1850s, 1872 in California. They started in the 1850s back in New York. And that's where the Bar Association really came in and turned it around, where they lumped us, the people in common law, they put us in the law of equity. And we're not born under the law of equity, folks. That's contract law. We're born under common law, which is we have unalienable rights, and our only government is our Creator. Okay? We do not live in a democracy. We live in a republic. There's a big difference. A democracy is the most vile government ever invented by man. Communism is better than a democracy. It is, believe me, I hate that word democracy. It's nowhere in this book would you find the word democracy. Nowhere. It's not there. Our founding fathers knew what a democracy was. They didn't want no democracy. They wanted a republic. And so, if I could recommend, just pick up a copy of the Bill of Rights and the Declaration of Independence. You don't even have to read the Constitution. The Constitution doesn't apply to you. The Constitution applies to the government. So when someone tells me it's unconstitutional, I know right then he doesn't know what his liberties are. I am not inside, or you are not inside that Constitution unless you take an oath of office or sign a contract. I'm sorry. All statutes, every statute that has ever been written in the United States of America comes from one place, under the authority of the Constitution. So it makes sense that if it gets its authority under the Constitution, which I am not under, then the statutes doesn't apply to me. You see what I mean? So who do the statutes apply to? The people that gave certain liberties up and went to work for the government, got a benefit from the government, and then you're under the law of equity and you have to obey the statutes. Pure and simple. Great system we got if the people just understood it. Our board of supervisors don't understand it. And I'm talking Trinity County, and I'm assuming that Shasta County don't know it neither. They have the authority to regulate and control the people that works for the county of Shasta and Trinity, and they have the right to regulate and control the property that Shasta County owns. And so that's where they get their authority to write an ordinance. They're controlling the people that they control. It tells you in the Constitution who the Constitution applies to. Every cop in the world will say that he takes an oath of office to support and obey the Constitution, and then I'll say, okay, I didn't take one. He'll look at me and says, well, you have to obey it too. But where does it say that? Well, that's when you're born. I said, well, you're born. Why do you have to take an oath of office? You just can't be a cop without taking an oath of office. They don't know. The public school system, it sucks. I mean, 1, 2, oh, it's working. Boy, I was getting hot now too. Okay, I got 1 minute left. Wow. God, I wish I could talk to you all day. Hey, I'm open. If there's anyone out here that wants to set a lecture or a meeting up, I'm open to do it. I come down and do it on my own time. I don't charge you nothing for it. I believe that you got to give freedom away. You can't sell it. And so, I'll be glad to give you my phone number if you want to write it down. And call me and tell me you got some people lined out. I don't care how many you got, 3 or 4, 500, 50, it don't matter. So if you want to call me and say, hey, B.E., let's set a meeting up, I'll drive down here. I'll be more than happy to drive down here. I can see my wife too. But my phone number is 629. Well, that's my telephone there. 629-4356. That might be my sister or my daughter-in-law saying, shut up and get off there. Where'd she go? But I wanted to thank, there she is, that's my daughter-in-law, Rose. I wanted to thank Tammy, and I wanted to say happy birthday, Tammy, I love you. And, River, hello to River. These are some of my favorite people. And you guys are really, I thank God all the time that He put me in the cannabis movement. I met the neatest people and the best Americans in my entire life in the cannabis movement. And I want to say God bless you, and anything I can do for you, let me know, okay? Thank you.